Alright, haven't made a ranking video in a while, and I've been wanting to do this one for a while. The reason I start with MacKinnon is because the year before that was Yakupov, and look, Nail Yakupov is a better hockey player than I'll ever be, but in the context of this list, he's clearly dead last, so starting with MacKinnon made the list quite a bit tighter, and I debated for a while not putting Celebrini in this list because he hasn't played a single game yet, but I couldn't put the word every in this video without including him, so I'm just going to kind of project what I think he's going to be and what I think he's going to mean for the Sharks franchise. Starting with number 12, it's Owen Power. Now, the kid's still only 21 and he's an absolute beast, 6'6", 221. He's developing real nicely into what I think is going to be a great top 4 defenseman for years to come. Buffalo clearly thinks so too. They've already locked him in for 7 years, $8.35 million per season. He's not going to wow you offensively, but that's fine. He's a defenseman. Very solid two-way D-man who's going to get you between 30 and 40 points while also stabilizing the top half of your D-core. Teams would of course love to have this guy, but I just don't think he is or has the potential to be as much of a game changer as the other guys on this list. I could see him rounding out as more of a Matthias Ekholm type two-way defender. They're extremely similar in height and weight, more than a Chris Pronger or Zdeno Chara type, which if that was the case, he'd be way higher on the list. Next, I'm putting Aaron Ekblad. Now this guy's a total beauty, and it's clear that he's been really important for the Florida Panthers franchise. He's been there through thick and thin, so he was one of the guys I was most happy to see lift the cup, but I just don't think he's a game changer, again, like the other guys on this list, and even the guys that were drafted after him, a few of which are on his team. I've got him ahead of Power just because of what he's done for the franchise, but I don't have him higher because while a lot of other guys on this list haven't won, they have been, or at least have the potential to be more game-changing or franchise-altering for their teams. Next, I've got Juraj Slafkovsky. Now, trust me, I debated putting this guy higher. Especially in the second half of last season, things just started to click for him, and he was really figuring out how to use his tools at the NHL level, and he looked like a completely different player from what we saw for the first year and a half of him in a Montreal Canadiens uniform. He was playing like a cornerstone piece. Now, if you look at the stats, what are you talking about, Johnny? 50 points is not a cornerstone piece. But trust me, if you watch this guy play when everything started to click, you know what I mean. He's an absolute bull on skates who's realizing how to use that to his advantage. You mix that with some hockey IQ and some good finishing ability, plus the fact that he was still 19 years old for most of the season, you've got something pretty cool to build around, and Montreal realized it. They locked him in right away. The reason he's here on the list is just simply because of the other guys who are on it. But him and the next guy I'm going to talk about are absolutely, to me, the top 2 candidates who could be rising this thing quickly, passing some of the other guys on this ranking if I make another one in the future. Next up at number 9, we have Alexis Lafreniere. In upcoming years, I could definitely see him climbing the list because he's really found his groove. It wasn't long ago this guy was getting healthy scratch, put on the 4th line, and people were definitely questioning what he is in the NHL, and some people were even ready to just call him a straight up bust. But after the season, and especially the playoffs he just had, he looks primed to become one of the marquee players in New York, which is what they drafted him to be originally. It was honestly kind of tough to pick between him and Slafkovsky. These are two guys who are at completely different parts of their development cycles. One has 4 years of NHL experience, and the other one has a season and a half of games played. I just think Lafreniere's raw skill is going to put him just a little bit above of Slafkovsky in terms of potential, although I do think it's really close because Slafkovsky is learning how to use his size, and he's got quite a bit of skill too, but it's just what Lafreniere did in the playoffs, especially how he stepped up when guys like Zibanejad and Panarin went MIA. I think that, and the fact that he finally had a breakout season where he was able to consistently put up offense, I think that showed a lot about where this player's heading. At number 8, I'm going with Nico Hischier. This is a guy who I think is quite underrated in the league. He's got that Barkov type two-way game where he can be on pace for 80 to 90 points, very skilled, but also very, very responsible defensively. He was a Selke runner-up a couple of years ago. He's a true 200-foot player. He leads by example on the ice. That's why he's got the C on his jersey, and I don't just mean the one that literally says jersey on it. This guy's absolute gold for an NHL lineup, but he's not a game breaker. You look at some of the names that were taken directly after him in the draft where he went first overall. Makar, Heiskanen, Pettersson, Suzuki. You've got game breakers there that are significantly better than him, or you've got players like Suzuki or Robert Thomas who were either at his level or slightly below. However, given how important he is to that Devils team and how much he does for them all over the ice, and in terms of leadership, I just think he's so valuable and still underrated, which is why for now at least I have him ahead of Slafkovsky and Lafreniere. Next is Celebrini. I don't think we're talking about a Bedard or a McDavid or a Matthews here, but I do think we're looking at a Jonathan Toews in his prime type player here, which if you were watching that when he was winning cups and gold medals, you know how great of a player he was. Looks like he might even have a bit more pure skill than Toews had, so sometimes unless you're talking about a generational talent or close to it, it's hard to know who's going to be a bust and who isn't, but I think this one's going to turn out okay for San Jose. Alright, deciding between these next two was really tough, but by a hair, I'm putting Rasmus Dahlin at 6. Franchise cornerstone #1 defenseman who I think is going to be the captain of the Sabres sometime in the future. I also think he's going to be a Norris Trophy winner at some point. He's a superstar, no two ways about it. The type of piece you build your decor around, man, the type of piece you build a team around. It's just too bad that he hasn't had a good enough team around him to be able to play playoff games. Once that happens, I think we'll truly see him be part of more top 3 or 4 defensemen in the world conversations. At 5, just ahead of him, I've got Jack Hughes. Just such a dynamic face of the franchise type talent. He sure made may lead that team in a Barkov type way, but Hughes leads them in a Tkachuk type way. He's the talent that really revitalized that franchise, and he's the straw that stirs the drink. I really do think, especially given the Caps goal differential, if New Jersey had better goaltending and a healthy Hughes, I definitely think they would have made the playoffs and they would have had a good chance to make some noise again. Now with Markstrom and a healthy Dougie Hamilton and Jack Hughes, I think they're going to have a good year, and Hughes is going to be at the center of it. At 4, I'm going with Bedard. Now, obviously we're only 1 year into his career, so he's got plenty of time to rise, but we're in like the elite of the elite now, and I know he didn't score a gazillion points or 69 goals like the other guys in the top 4, but on a Chicago team where he had virtually zero help, as an 18-year-old, the kid's still not 19, his birthday's in July, he still managed to be a dangerous offensive force with elite talent. Whether you're happy that they got him or not, we haven't even begun to see just how beneficial Connor Bedard is going to be on the ice for the Blackhawks, but also off it with jersey sales and merch, ticket sales. Like, if you think it's nuts now, just wait till the Hawks start getting better and he starts putting up like serious elite offensive numbers. What we saw in his rookie season really was just the tip of the iceberg, and even that looked really good. I think it's going to be really tough for him to surpass one of the guys in the top 3 here, but I definitely wouldn't put it past him down the road. Alright, top 3 is where it probably gets a little spicy here. I'm going to put Matthews at 3rd because it's clear how transformative he's been for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, some people have only known this era of Leafs hockey, so they associate him with the constant first round exits, but man, if you watch Leafs hockey from like 05 until 2016, you're very aware how much more fun the Matthews era has been compared to that. Especially the Ron Wilson and Peter Horacek years, oh boy. The Leafs went from making the playoffs once in 11 seasons and their hopes resting on the backs of guys like Joffrey Lupul, Tyler Bozak, and Cody Franzen, as well as the usual suspects of course, to literally making the playoffs every year with ease without it really even being a second thought. And Matthews is a huge reason for that. He's done some historic stuff wearing the blue and white already. That 69 goal season is insane. That's why he's this high, but he's not higher because, of course, as we know, it's been beaten to death. He and the Leafs haven't been able to translate that into playoff success. Now, that's not completely his fault, but the other 2 guys on this list have been able to dominate in the regular season, yes, but they've also been central figures in pushing their team through come playoff time as well. At number 2, Nathan MacKinnon. Now, I know some of you are going to be thinking MacKinnon should be number 1 because he actually won the cup, whereas McDavid didn't, and I've got a couple things there. Number 1, MacKinnon was a central figure in the cup run and in other recent Avs playoff runs as well, but in 2022 especially, Makar and Rantanen, they were unreal. They carried the team just as much, if not more, than MacKinnon. And look, I think Nathan MacKinnon is the best player on the Avs, but I also think getting Cale Makar was as transformative for that franchise as getting MacKinnon. Whereas for Edmonton, I think getting McDavid was way more transformative and game-changing for them than getting Draisaitl. Also, I think if McDavid was an Av, they would still have a cup in this era, whereas if MacKinnon was an Oiler, I still don't think Edmonton would have one in this era. And that's not even mentioning the historic playoffs McDavid just had, Conn Smythe and all. But that's just my 2 cents. Give me your version of this ranking in the comments, and let me know what other ranking video you'd like me to make. I'm going to make a couple of them throughout the summer. Please like for more like this, and please make sure to subscribe if you're new. Thank you so much for watching. You're awesome.